Congratulations, Dr. Kielburger. I now invite you to address Convocation.
Good morning. Chancellor Jackson, President Franklin, honored guests, members of the faculty, graduates, and of course, family and friends. It is indeed a great honor to join into the Trent community, a university that I've long been a great admirer of. We have many graduates from your programs who work with us, both here in Canada and around the world, and of course, many extraordinary students who help to support the programs. As you may imagine, it's not often that I quote the former American President George W. Bush. But standing before his own alma mater, Yale University, speaking to the graduating class, he once said, "To those of you who complete with straight A's, congratulations. I'm sure you'll go on to do great things. To those of you who finish with a C- average, perhaps one day you too will be president of the United States." But graduates, in all sincerity, you've worked extremely hard in order to be here. Countless essays and exams, long hours of work, maybe a few to more than a few. And through it all, you developed lifelong friendships, completed a degree which you are to be very proud of, and learned about the world both inside and outside the classroom. And that would not have been possible without these extraordinary individuals, this community who has gathered to support you, family, friends, educators. And so I want to give you the opportunity to recognize these individuals who are here today and continue to support you with the appreciation and the gratitude that they deserve, and with a round of applause. As members of Trent's graduating class, you leave here with a tremendous accomplishment to your credit. A university degree is a rare and precious gift, one that very few in this world will ever achieve. If I can speak for a moment to the School of Education and Professional Learning, we live in a world where 113 million children between the ages of 5 and 11 have never once stepped foot into a classroom, never once learned how to read and write. They sign their name by putting their thumb in ink and their thumbprint at the bottom of the page. They can't count the money that they earn or know their rights. 2/3 of those are girls. As you heard in our organization, we build schools around the world, about 650 that we built and support. And when I meet children, the first question I always ask them is, if you could have anything in the world, what would be your greatest dream? And more often than not, I hear it's a chance to receive an education. And for most children, that is but a dream in our world. I'll never forget meeting Jeffrey, a young 8-year-old boy in the Philippines. He lived on a garbage dump there just outside of Manila, the capital. And I asked him, "Have you ever been to school?" He looked up to his father, who was working alongside him, and he asked his father, "What is school?" In his 8 years, not only had he never gone to school, he hadn't even left the garbage dump where he was born and where he worked and where he lived every single day. He never even heard the meaning of the word school. To the graduates here, the future educators, you've chosen an extraordinarily noble profession. You've received an education, but truly the greatest gift that you could ever give is to pay that gift forward and to provide that education to others here at home and perhaps even around the world. To the graduates of the School of Nursing, when we build schools and our project sites, we always establish medical clinics because a child cannot learn unless that child is healthy. As you heard, our projects serve over 1 million people now around the world. And tragically, that is but a fraction of the need that exists. I'll never forget being in Kenya and a young girl, 13 years old, named Mercy at one of our projects, a school that we support. She collapsed. And so we brought her to a medical clinic, and we asked the nurse at the medical clinic to run 3 tests for malaria, tuberculosis, and HIV/AIDS. And this nurse refused. She shook her head and said, "I'll run the 2 tests, malaria and tuberculosis." We insisted and we refused to relent, and finally she looked down and she said, "Okay, I'll run the 3 tests for malaria, tuberculosis, and the other one." The stigma was so great that a government-trained and government-paid nurse in a clinic would not say the words HIV/AIDS. Even though it was ravishing through this community, no one died of AIDS. They die of opportunistic infections. They die of the causes we all knew at the root of what it was, but no one would say the words. You've chosen a profession to serve humanity, to serve those at their greatest needs. You know, we may build schools and medical clinics, but I assure you it's the people we work with who have taught us the most. At our project sites around the world, a young girl in Thailand, we were walking down the street with a group of volunteers from Canada, and she called out to us. She was about 8 years old and cupped her hand and touched her mouth. And it's a universal sign in developing countries when children are asking for food. And so one of our volunteers, a young 14-year-old boy from Canada, reached into his backpack, handed her an orange, and we kept walking. And we stopped when we looked back and we saw she was holding the orange in her hands, so excited, obviously hungry. She started to peel it, but actually tear it apart. She was so famished. And then she stopped when she saw all the other children on the street who were also staring at her, who were also obviously hungry. And she looked down at the orange in her hands and started to break it into tiny pieces and share an equal piece with each of the kids, till she had one sliver that she sat down and she ate. Graduates, like that young street girl in Thailand, will you share the gift that's held in your hands today? A university education is an extraordinary gift, and we ask of you to think not only about what it can do for you, but what it allows you to do to help others. As I close, I want to leave you with one final thought, a final story. I've had the honor to meet many individuals through our work around the world, world leaders and great heroes of our time. But the person who's taught me the most about what it means to leave a legacy, what it means to live a life of meaning, was a very humble school teacher named Agnes. A humble school teacher who at a very young age, like many of you here today, knew that she wanted to teach. She went off to a developing country, to teach at an all-girls private school. And one day, walking from her home to the school, she saw a woman literally dying in the gutters. And although she wasn't a nurse, but with the basic teaching that every nurse holds in his or her heart, to know that everyone should be allowed to live and even to die with dignity and with respect, Agnes reached to this woman, picked her up, brought her to a hospital. And the hospital turned her away because they didn't have enough money, and then Agnes brought her to a second hospital, again turned away. And finally brought this woman into her own home, laid her in her own bed, and held her hand. And was just present till eventually this woman passed away. And in that split-second decision, Agnes not only changed the course of her own life and touched that woman's final moments, but literally inspired millions upon millions around the world. And most don't know the name Agnes, but they know the name that she took when she took her vows, Mother Teresa. She was a simple school teacher who taught herself to be a nurse, helped over 30,000 people, and inspired millions. I had the honor to work alongside her in Calcutta, and as she walked me to the mother house and the doors and the last day as I was leaving, I asked her, how do you do it? How do you work every single day with people around you who are suffering and who are dying when you know that you can't help every person? The very words and the very challenge that whether you be a nurse or a teacher, you embark upon. And in response to my question, she held my hands, and she had hands like literally sandpaper from a life of service, and she looked in my eyes, and when Mother Teresa looked into your eyes, you felt like she was looking into your soul. And she said, you have to realize that in our lives we do no great things, but we can do small things with great love. And she said, that's how we change this world for the better. So to the graduating class of 2011 from Trent University, both in education and in nursing, congratulations on all that you've accomplished and your new opportunities to take action, however small, but with great love, and to truly change this world for the better.